Okay, so now on to Polly's arms. So you're going to take your arm pattern and cut it out on the white line. Remember not to add a seam allowance. Okay, so my two arms are now stitched onto my fabric using a small 2.5 stitch length. I've got an opening at the top there for my stuffing, and I'm now going to cut them out. But before I do cut them out and snip round them, I'm just going to separate the two arms. So I've got two separate pieces. And then with my pinking shears, I'll just go around that outside edge, nice and close to the stitch line, so that on any of the curves, the seam's going to bend appropriately all the way through the curve on the arm. And so that bit at the top where the opening is, I don't use the pinking shears on that bit, I just do a straight cut with the scissors, obviously leaving a seam allowance. And there's your lovely little arm cut out, all ready to be turned and to be stuffed. So here we've got your two arms ready to turn. Now I like to just pinch a little bit in on that hand end and just grab my thermostat scissors and just poke it through and push up. Oh, sorry, I've got to push it against my body to do this bit. So push it up, push it on through, grab that hand end, pull it out. And now we're going to use our dotting tool to smooth out those seams. So with the big ball head, not the thin one, the tiny end, otherwise you'll poke through the fabric, just run that ball all the way along the inside edge of that seam, and that will press that out nice and flat. Just pull it along with your finger and thumb, and you'll get a nice straightened out, unbuckled seam. Make sure you get that thumb really pushed out, get right into that curvy bit. It's a small little area, so really work it and get that pushed right out. So there's your arm all turned and all the seams nicely stretched out. It does look a bit skinny, but once you stuff it, then it's going to fatten up again. So there's your arm with the little tiny thumb. Now it's time to stuff it. To start with, just sort of separate some small pieces. Just give yourself a nice little bunch of small sections of stuffing that you can use to start with. And we're going to use our thermostat scissors again, but before we stuff, we just need to roll our arm down, a bit like what we did for the boot, so it makes it easier to stuff. So just roll that whole length of arm down, or as much as you can get it down. Just sort of wiggle your finger in so that you can get a nice opening there. Make sure that you've got a good hole there so that you've got the opening ready for the stuffing to go in, and then pick it up with your hemostats and just stuff it in. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you really get it pushed down nice and firm right into the bottom of that hand. And then get a smallish piece and then push that right into that thumb and really work on it to get it right inside that thumb. So just a little tip here for when you're actually doing your stuffing. What you want to do is you want to get a little hole in your stuffing, and then the next bit goes in to that hole, and then you leave a hole, and then the next bit goes in to that hole. So what you're actually doing when you're adding in the stuffing is you're layering it up inside the limb. You're not putting it in small little balls, and so you've got little knotty balls all lined up in the limb. So you're pushing in, making a hole, and pushing the next bit into that hole, into the hole, and it's all layering up inside the limb. That will prevent you from having like a lumpy bumpy stuffed area. Nothing worse than lumpy bumpy stuffing. 200 grams is about the amount of stuffing that you need for your doll. If you've got a lot left over at the end, you know that you probably haven't stuffed it enough, and this can cause a bit of an issue with things like limbs, the arms and the legs. If they're not stuffed firmly enough, they will go baggy. So, and then you'll start getting indentations into the arm or the leg where, you know, the stuffing's not quite thick enough. So do bear that in mind. Do make sure that it's best to overstuff than to understuff. So you can see again how nice and solid this arm is. Just run your fingers along, make sure that there's no lumps and bumps anywhere, and just have a look at the thumb, make sure that that's nicely done. So now you're just going to pin over that top opening, and as you can see it's on a bit of a curve. So pin it down all the way round. Take some tacking thread and just sew a tacking stitch all the way through along those folded over edges. So you can actually push that stuffing down once you've done your tacking stitches. Get it down, push it down a little way, because you can then prick it back up again. And so there's your curved top edge. And then next you're going to take your skin coloured thread and you're going to close the gap and just use a small slip stitch all the way along the top edge. And then just unpick your tacking stitches out. And then get your dull needle and just pull and prick that stuffing back up to the top of the arm. Okay, so there you got your two arms. So now we're going to sew her arm onto her body. So firstly, let's get the thread attached. Take your arm and position it on the shoulder. Turn it over, it's probably easier for you to see. So where that square edge is, that's where the edge of the top of the arm's going. And then just pop some pins in. I normally put 3 pins in all the way along there. So we're now going to sew using the mattress stitch like we've done before. So you just take up a small stitch on the top of the arm and then a small stitch on the body. So where you sewed along that top edge of the arm, you want to go just beyond that with your small mattress stitch. So those top arm stitches that you did, you're not going to see them because they're going to be inside of the mattress stitch. and then turn and go under the arm. And then I repeat and I go round again, so each arm is actually sewn on twice. And then finally go back to the centre and just fasten off your stitches and sink your tail. So there you have your first arm sewn on. It's quite a good arm because it can go up and down, bring it over the front. Yeah. And here she is with her two arms sewn on. Your finished little dolly.